first question, so what does CBDC stand for? It stands for central bank digital currencies, right? And at the first glance, if you do some quick research, you will realize that every central bank worth their salt right now is chasing some CBDC project. It is, of course, China was the first one to launch it in 2020 with a very successful pilot across multiple districts. And then now they're going full hog. And I think they will be the first nation to have a serious digital currency. And we'll talk about what that means. India has been kind of a little bit cautious, unlike in UPI, where RBI has been a world leader. In the case of CBDC, RBI has been a bit of a cautious follower. And I think China moving into the whole thing, and then during the pandemic, the US government talking about it, then a whole bunch of, sort of these highly digital countries like Estonia and others going, in the Baltics and then Nordic countries. So slow, bit by bit, Singapore Monetary Authority, bit by bit, I think now it's impossible to be, it's become a wave. It's at some point, the price of not being part of it becomes bigger than the price of being part of it. So now we reach that point where if some country says, I'm not doing CBDC, you have to worry about their sanity, right? So that's where we are right now. So every country is doing something, every central bank is doing something. So the first question, before I describe what it is, let me describe why it is happening, right? I think no central bank will officially state this and admit it, but in my view, and I think the view of a lot of people, the rise of cryptocurrencies, especially the success of Bitcoin and Ether, has literally scared the hell out of central banks. Because the idea is that if more and more people buy into the idea that there is a cryptocurrency out there that's outside of regulation and doesn't have any nation state controlling it, there's no sovereign that controls that currency. The fear is that the states will lose power and governments will fall and central banks will become toothless. This fear of not being able to regulate currency is a very, very real and mortal fear, which has led central banks to essentially have to react. So there's a reactionary approach that you see here, because essentially this argument that we say that if you can't beat them, then you might as well join them, right? So in some sense, CBDC is a response in that direction, that all the central banks have realized that they can't stop digital currencies in the form of crypto, privately regulated currencies. If public is going to take them, buy them, invest in them, and use them to pay, then we might as well do something in the form of digital currency so that we can at least articulate that, look, I have a formal digital currency, don't go for the informal ones. So that's the number one point that I want to make. And interestingly enough, this is of course slightly dated information. I didn't have more updated data, I couldn't find one, but last year when I looked, the crypto market cap across the world had overtaken India's GDP, right? So crypto market cap globally would have been equal to being the 5th or 6th largest GDP in the world, right? If you look at it from that perspective. So that tells you how big it is or how big it was. Of course, now the corrections have probably slaughtered 30, 40, 50% of that. But nevertheless, the point is proven that this is not a small thing to ignore. So first and foremost, frankly, if you pay attention, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but if you pay attention to some of the speeches made in the last 6 months by various, governors, deputy governors of Indian and other central banks, they have been trash talking cryptocurrencies. And I think that tells you how much they are scared about it. Because I don't see the need for a top central banker to come out and say bad things about something for long periods, unless they really think that's a threat to their own, sort of system. So that is, I think, one clear indication that this is being taken very seriously.